Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
This is Mr. Chris Claremont, a legend.
Melanie goes,
Tired.
how's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for my advanced look at the new printing of the Silver Surfer Omnibus Volume 1 from Marvel Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. Now, before going any further, a big thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us an advanced copy of this omnibus. This reprint is due out in the direct market and book market on May 13th or 14th, depending on where you get your books. And what we're looking at here is the direct market cover. This is the one that is supplied by Big John Buscema. On the left-hand side is your standard edition cover. That one is also supplied by Big John. And both of the covers underneath the dust jacket is identical. So let's shift the focus back to this cover right here. Huge fan of this cover. Why is the God of Thunder fighting the Herald of Galactus? And is he still the Herald of Galactus during this time? But it does come from issue number 4. And what I want to do is compare it to the second printing of the book. This is the one that actually had the print error, and then it was restocked, and it is fixed now. Believe me, I'll do a comparison here in a little bit, so you can rest assured. But again, this is the second printing, and then when it was restocked, funny enough, they gave it a new spine design, the same spine design that you have here. But this is the way the original one looked, and then they went through that change. And then, of course, the back of the book back here. My destiny still lies before me, and where it beckons, there shall soar the Silver Surfer. It's changed a little bit. Stan Lee and John Buscema's Silver Surfer, one of the most beloved series from Marvel Age of Comics, complete in one exquisite omnibus edition. And, of course, the covers here, the ISBN, and what it collects, the T rating and the Marvel logo. Both of them retailing for $100. Now, I want to make one thing perfectly clear, because there's a lot of people, much like me, that collect any kind of format as long as it's in collected editions. This era of Silver Surfer has not been collected in Epic format. Even though it's a volume 1, it is mapped different than the volume 1 from the Epic collections. This is the stuff that predates this series and happens after his first appearance in the Fantastic Four Coming of Galactus. And then, of course, this is volume 3. So technically, this would be volume 2 in Epic format, but it has not come out in Epic collection. And it's been printed 3 times now in Omni format. Now, it is alone, and was alone for the longest time, as being the only Silver Surfer Omni. However, it does have company, because we do have the Silver Surfer by Mike Allred and Dan Slott and Laura Allred Omni. And coming soon, as a matter of fact, this very month, we are finally getting Volume 2, or Silver Surfer Return to the Spaceways. So if you want to see what it will look like on your shelf with the new printing and this new Omni, oh my gosh. And then, of course, the Dan Slott and Mike Allred way after this. But there's plenty of more Silver Surfers to collect in Omni format. Now, let's go back to this comparison. So let's go ahead and get them out of the dust jacket here. And we have Silver Surfer Omni. Now we have it actually filled out, the logo there. And then the spine of the book. Here, Silver Surfer. And that image, volume 1. Lee Buscema, over here Stan Lee and John Buscema. Back here, nothing. Because I think the original printing had the faux leather Marvel Masterworks look to it. And then Now over here we have this piece by Big John. All right, what I'm going to do is open this book up and talk about the stories found in here, show off this beautiful artwork, look at the extras, and we'll look at the build of the book. We'll do a comparison to the original printing, and rest assured, if you don't even want to watch any of that, this is printed just fine, unlike the second printing of the book, which again, I'll show you where those pages are. All right, let's go ahead and get this book open. Silver Surfer Omni, Volume 1, Stan Lee, John Buscema, and here are the actual credits for the entire book. Stan Lee, Roy Thomas for writers, John Buscema, Jack Kirby, Mary Severin for pencilers, and then your inkers like Joe Sinnott, Sal Buscema, Dan Atkins, and Chick Stone. Letters by Sam Rosen and Art Simek, and then unfortunately, back then, colorists weren't credited. And then your table of contents right here. And I do love the fact that we have these. I love when we have letter pages and table of contents, but the table of contents not just telling you where you're going to find each issue, but when it was originally published and what the title of each issue was. So in here you are going to find an introduction by Stan Lee. As a matter of fact, there's 2 introductions by Stan Lee, and those come from the Masterworks. And then when the books were originally published, Silver Surfer, August 1968, then October, then December. As you can probably see, they're skipping months, so it was bi-monthly. And that was because it was the type of format that it was in. And I'll explain what that means here in a little bit. So it goes from 1968 all the way to 1970. However, there's a couple of comics down here from 67 and 69, and then an outro from Stan Lee. So collected in this Omni is Silver Surfer, the 1968 series 1 through 18, the material from Fantastic Four, annual number 5, and Nabrang number 13. This book has 576 pages and retails for $100. And we do kick it off with an introduction from Stan Lee, just pretty much talking about who his favorite character to write was. And believe it or not, it is Silver Surfer. He has gone on record to talk about why he loves Norrin Rod and why at the time they couldn't let anybody else really write the character because he wanted to be the sole writer. As a matter of fact, when the series later on came back, with that Volume 3 of the Epic Collection, with that Volume 2, The Return of the Spaceways Omni, that I showed a little bit earlier, he wanted to write those stories, and he was upset that he couldn't, because he wanted to be the sole writer on this character that just meant so much to him. Now, that Volume 0 of the Epic Collection, that collects stories that happened before here, like when he ran into the Hulk, or when he ran into Dr. Doom, and Dr. Doom was trying to get his power cosmic from him. So, issue number 1 is a very interesting issue, because it is a retelling of the story of Galactus, but more importantly, it is a retelling of the origin of Norrin Rod. And I think this is so important. My daughters and I actually did a review of the Marvel Masterworks. They read them for the first time, and both of them noticed something about the character, which I'll explain in a little bit. So, on the planet Zenla, which is all part of this utopian system in a far away, or no, they are part of our Milky Way galaxy. We do meet the character of Norrin Rod, and civilization here has kind of perfected itself. It's lost its strive to explore, and Norrin Rod, who's a young scholar, just seems to yearn for adventure. So we do go back and forth between what is present day here, and then a flashback on this planet of Zenla. He's attacked by Yetis here on Earth. He reminisces about the Hulk encounter, which again can be found in that Epic Collection number 1 and the Dr. Doom story I was talking about. But what is happening here is he's retelling the story, how in Zenla everything was perfect, and he was the one that was yearning for adventure. His love interest right here, Shalaba, like, she also kind of sees where he's coming from, but they have this connection for each other. And then something happens. So Shalabal and him get called out to this meeting, because apparently what's happening is that the Devourer of Worlds, Galactus, is coming for Zenla. And everybody is doomed just because they've perfected everything. And he refuses to give up. He's like, look, we pretty much don't stand a chance against Galactus. So what is the risk of me taking a spaceship and heading out there and just talking to him? And in here, you're also going to meet some of his family members and some of Shalabal's family members. But Norrin Rod does make it to Galactus, and here he is by Big John Buscema in all his glory. And he makes a deal with him. Galactus is in need of a herald, somebody that will go ahead of him to a planet and find planets that he can feed on. And he makes a deal. He tells him, if you leave Zenla alone, I will become your herald. He who assumes the mantle of herald to Galactus shall so do forevermore. Right. Anyway, this amazing splash page right here, and when Norrin-Rod is transformed to the Silver Surfer. And it does quickly retell him coming to Earth, and then of course the meeting with the Fantastic Four and what they did in issue number 50 with the Ultimate Nullifier, and how in the world did they get his hands, or that Reed Richards and company get their hands on it. And then of course how Galactus was pretty much stripped of his rights to travel the spaceways, and he is grounded on Earth. So that's what this is. Galactus takes away a portion of the power cosmic and leaves Silver Surfer here on Earth to atone for his sins. So that's what this entire series is about. In here, you're going to see him deal with humanity. But I mean, don't get me wrong, there's aspects of intergalactic fights in here. There's also, of course, the flashbacks to his love that he just keeps thinking about. But we're going to have the first appearance of the Badoon here. The Badoon can turn invisible, so this makes it really interesting. For example, like he ends up fighting against the Badoon, but because they are invisible, and this is a problem that he will have throughout pretty much 2/3 of the series, because they can turn invisible, Earth sees them or him fighting absolutely nobody. So it's like he's destroying things and running amok. And that's what the Earthlings see. We are going to have the first appearance of this bad guy right here, who you may be familiar with. And that is none other than Mephisto. I always think it was odd when I was younger that the first appearance of Mephisto was through the pages of Galactus. But if you think about the character of the pages of Galactus, the pages of Silver Surfer. But if you do think about, that is an amazing shot, by the way. If you think about the character of Silver Surfer and what he represents, and then this Faustian type of character that Mephisto is, it completely makes sense. Because throughout here, he is dealing with making deals with the devils. He made a deal with Galactus. And to see his love, will he make another deal with somebody like Mephisto? Or will he become a better character? Will he move on and strive? You're going to see him get manipulated by another god through here, and that is Loki. Now, through these pages, I mentioned earlier on when we were looking at the table of contents right here that it skips some months, right? It became bi-monthly up until you get to issue number 7, 8, 9, and then it becomes monthly again. And that's because these were done in prestige format. So one thing you're going to notice is immediately is the price, 25 cents for the very first issue. And usually the first issue is double-sided, double-sized, not double-sided. And then 25 cents for the second issue. But each of the issues was a giant size issue. So that's why they were able to charge more. I don't know what ended up happening, and honestly in the introductions it's not really explained if it didn't sell that well or what ended up happening to it. This is one of my favorite characters and issues right here, Al B. Harper. So let's talk about this one here with the Return of the Stranger. But apparently, I guess it wasn't selling enough that they had to go back to a monthly type of series back when it gets to issue number 7. So the price will drop again, but you'll have the normal page count. So in this issue, you get the return of a really unique character, a character that had existed just in a few other issues. Again, him mourning the loss of Shalabal, but meeting this character of Al B. Harper, who's an African-American male. Keep in mind, this was in 68, 69, and 70 when these issues came out. And he's a bit of a scientist, and he's trying to help the Silver Surfer. I always thought it was ridiculous that putting on this is a very Scooby-Doo thing to do, but I guess it kind of makes sense. I don't know who he's fooling trying to get a job. So he's trying to get a job to do things right. He's not trying to take the easy way out. Al's trying to help him, find his way back home. He's got to get out of this shell that Galactus has kind of trapped him in. And unfortunately, what happens is that Al becomes this really great supporting cast. However, he is killed. He's lynch-mobbed. And this is when we get the return of all people, the Stranger. Like I said, a unique character that had only appeared in a handful of other issues, especially the X-Men, where he made his first appearance. But here's where he has a confrontation with the Silver Surfer. On Earth, unfortunately, Al, because he was trying to do the right thing, just gets beaten and killed. And man, this is such a heartbreaking scene because when you go to the final page here, when they're burying him and nobody knows who this guy is, like, it's beautiful, but also sad. The Silver Surfer leaves this eternal flame that will endure as long as Earth stays still. As long as the Earth endures, it will always be lit. And here's your letter pages. So the letter pages are intact in here. By this point, Sal Buscema, our pal Sal, starts inking these issues. So you can notice the differences here. And then, of course, when Joe Sinnott was inking these issues. Yeah, the Badoon and Mephisto making an appearance through here for the first time. And they're not the only characters, but those are, I think, are the two that left such an impact in Marvel Comics. Then, of course, Silver Surfer's origin. Here's another introduction by Stan Lee. In that introduction, he talks about how he doesn't remember why the 18th issue was drawn by Jack Kirby, who, co-created the character. Actually, no, Jack the King did create the character of the Silver Surfer, but he had nothing to do with the origin of the Silver Surfer that is told through here. By that point, he had moved away from the character. These are the stories of Frankenstein and trying to take over a small town and trying to use the power cosmic and learning the hard way that you can't just do that. I mean, the guy had fought Loki, right? And then you have Mephisto manipulating him again and bringing back the Flying Dutchman through here. So some historical stories are being told through these very pages. Mephisto does become kind of like the big bad. Now, in the first half of these issues, so for about 8 to 9 issues, I'm going to say probably a little bit more, it is this woe is me type of story of like humanity just keeps on disappointing him. No matter what he ends up doing, no matter who he ends up rescuing, it seems like he can't get any bit of respect from humanity. And by the end of the series, you'll see a big change that, unfortunately, they don't do anything with. And if you haven't read this, I know I'll put a spoiler tag at the very beginning. I am going to be talking about that final issue that is drawn by Jack Kirby and what kind of cliffhanger they leave it on. So just in case, I'll let you know when we're about to get to that part. By now, we got the Skrulls involved. Eventually, we'll get Spider-Man involved. And the series then wraps up. Yeah, this is the issue with Spider-Man because there's miscommunications. They end up fighting. But yes, for about 2/3 of this Omni, the Silver Surfer is having to deal with, like, even from the first issue when he rescues somebody, they just start shooting him. Like, humanity just starts shooting him because they misinterpret him for some kind of alien being, because that's what we do. We shoot first, ask questions later type of human race. And what this is, and you can see in every one of the introductions or outros by Stan Lee, this is finally the Fantastic Four getting involved a little more, it's kind of like himself, right? It's Stan writing himself into a character. That's why this character meant so much to him. Because if you ever read any of Stan's soapbox, he talks about how humanity can be kinder, humanity can be greater, and how, unfortunately, he just kind of lets us down. And the Silver Surfer says these things throughout these issues. So when I said, like, there's going to be a lot of the Silver Surfer feeling sorry for himself, yeah, I meant that. Here's John Buscema and Chick Stone now doing those heavy ink lines. So looking a lot different than Sal and looking a lot different than Joe Sinnott. Now, issue number 18, this is where I'll talk about some spoilers, by the way, for this issue. This wraps up the series. So it was supposed to continue. Jack the King Kirby comes back, and this is the whole helping the Inhumans against Maximus, because when is Maximus not trying to take over the Inhumans? But in here, what ends up happening is towards the very end, the Silver Surfer just has enough and he snaps, right? He just claims war on humanity. He says, "Let mankind beware. From this time forth, the Surfer will be the deadliest one of all." What a badass, amazing twist that they took this good guy that you've been reading about for 18 issues and kind of destroying him and his faith for humanity because he's grounded here and he's seeing the worst of the worst, and then snapping by the 18th issue. So about 2 years later, he snaps and will become a villain. Unfortunately, that never came to be. There was no 19th issue. There wasn't a follow-up to that. There wasn't another original graphic novel that follow the story of Silver Surfer going dark. It immediately goes into, what is it? There's another graphic novel that unfortunately cannot be reprinted because of licensing. And then it goes into the John Byrne one-shot, and then it goes into the Silver Surfer Volume 2. So that story's never picked up. It just kind of ends right there. And in the introduction by Stan Lee, he talks about how they couldn't do it. They couldn't follow through with making somebody like this character a villain. Now, in the very back, you're going to see that Fantastic Four Annual number 5, which actually takes place before any of these issues. And then Nodbrand Ek, which was printed in 1969. And then let's look at the extras. I think this has the exact same page count as the previous printing. So no, they didn't. They didn't add the new Mighty Marvel Masterworks cover or the direct market cover from the previous printing. Just has a couple of pages of because there's not that much. There's not even original art. Would have loved to have seen some original art. And yes, these reprints right here. And the Omni by S. Ribbage. Now let's look at the binding. 576 pages and sewn binding. This one printed at the iMac printer. So there's a little bit of bleed through happening. And I will be... Actually, let's go ahead. Let's compare it to... Now, I don't have the original printing. I just have this one here. So let's go ahead and compare it. This one, I do believe, was printed at the Donley printer. The second printing right here. So this is how it looks. And the paper stock feels a little bit thicker than the iMac printer. Background looks a little bit different. But let's look over here where you see a little bit of bleed through. You do see it here too, but it's a little more prominent over here. So just in case. And then of course the way the book lays over. There's not really a lot of spread pages, but this is the way it lays over. Colors looking, honestly, just tad little bit darker over here, but that's it. There's really no difference. All right, the big questions. Let's talk about these misprints from this second printing. From issue number 9, the second printing has this page right here for 337. So it jumps from page 10 to 12, whereas over here is 10 to 11. So this is in the proper reading order. So what they did was switch out page 11 and 12 right here. And in the new printing, that has been fixed. And it was also fixed in the original printing. For some reason, the second printing, and even the restock of the second printing, they ended up fixing it. So what you want to do, in case you're buying this used, is avoid that ribbon right there. The color of ribbon that we have, it's like dark blue, navy blue on, and white. And page 474, which will come to play in a little bit. Just remember this top part right here, because the next page we're going to go to is page 496. So now we're looking at issues 15 and 16. Remember what I said about remember the top part of this right here? So yes, this right here from page 12, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second, was accidentally put on page 496. However, in the new printing, it is fixed. They have the proper page 12 up here and page 13. Whereas over here, they have the page here from issue 15. Now, some people I've seen say that in issue 16 that this is a mess up because they see page 12 and page 13, and that is due to the house ads. Remember when I said like ads sometimes would take half of the comic book page? I don't have the original issues, but what I do have is the Taschen copy of Silver Surfer, which has the actual ads. So this is what I meant. So the top half up here, which is what they did, and then the bottom half had ads right here. So all they did was just shift this down to just make it one cohesive page right there. So it's all sequential. You're not missing anything. I saw people saying that that was a mistake because they see page 12 and page 13 at the bottom. And rightly so, right? But unless you knew how Silver Age comics sometimes had those ads. But that is it. Back in print. Silver Surfer Omni, Volume 1. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltzcomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the page count and the build and comparison, and of course the content of this book. In the comments down below, let me know if you missed out on it the first time around and you are picking it up, or if you have the previous printings, and of course, what other era of the Silver Surfer would you like to see in Omni format? I know we're getting the next one, the Return to the Spaceways, and man, that just makes a lot of us happy. But honestly, there's a lot of Silver Surfer that they could be collecting in Omni format. But that is it, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Smash that like button on the way out. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.